What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Barbaric Yelp. This is the show about manliness in our modern era. I am your host, Adam, and today the topic I want to talk to you about is the fact that there's no such thing as a free lunch. I have seen multiple times in recent days people talking about essentially, the popular term is democratic socialism. It's socialism, it's theft, it's the idea that somehow if the government pays for everything, even though the government doesn't produce anything, that we get a free lunch. And there is no free lunch. Basic human rights are not free. They come at the cost of personal responsibility, accountability, and ultimately consequences. You can say whatever you like, but you have to bear the consequences of them. If you hit on some other guy's girl, you might get your teeth knocked out. If you call somebody's mom something, or you say something inappropriate, or if you go online and spout your mouth off in a way you shouldn't, you might get a knock on the door from somebody curious about your intent. Even worse today, you may get canceled by a society that has decided the mob rule is the way to go. Either way, your rights given by God don't come free. They come with responsibility. There's the Bill of Rights that we have here in the United States that was bought by the blood of generations that valued and understood what they meant, what those rights, those basic rights meant. They're old ideas founded in the roots of the world. They're founded in the origin. They're founded in creation and God's imparting his image to man, and stating that man deserves honor because they're made in the image of God. This was laid down with the roots of the mountains. However, this generation seems to have forgotten those things, and that's what I want to talk about today. Our modern society has tried through consensus to claim that there are new rights, new free entitlements like free healthcare, the right to migrate, basic universal income. But nothing is free, and consensus is simply murder with distributed guilt. Interestingly, these three specifically are mankind trying to play God in a way that we were never intended to do. Like anything that tries to replace God on his throne, it only brings about death and destruction. In this case, the death will probably be the greatest economy and most advanced society and the freest people that have ever been. We cannot, no matter how much we try, control death. We can't control sickness. We can't control cancer. We can't control any of those things. We can't control accidents. A star could fall from the heavens and crush me tomorrow. Somebody might decide to look down at their phone and wreck into my car and kill me or my family or whoever else. We are not God. We cannot control death. And when we try through something like universal health care or vaccine mandates or mask mandates or any other kind of mandate where the government is deciding that we can control this thing, this virus, this pandemic, this whatever, with our mandates and our words and our vaccine and our science and our whatever, when we try to do that, inevitably it's going to lead to destruction. And it has. Our economy is decimated. Even though the stock market looks better than ever, reaching new highs all the time, you could see cryptocurrency is exploding and the dollar value is shrinking. You could see that the middle class, entrepreneurs, small businesses are decimated after almost 2 years now of lockdowns. It started 3 weeks to flatten the curve, or 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And it's become mandates, lockdowns. Some countries have built or are in the process of building concentration camps to quarantine the unvaccinated to protect the vaccinated. It's insanity. We're playing God, and then we're trying to say, hey, that healthcare, that all that stuff is going to be provided for you free of charge, but somebody's going to have to pay for it. Somebody had to pay for those doctors and those nurses to go to school. Somebody had to pay for the drugs to be developed. Somebody had to pay for the equipment to be built. Somebody had to pay for the hospitals, the electricity, all that stuff. some way or another that was paid for by someone. It's not free. There's no free lunch. We cannot control sickness. We cannot control death. That's healthcare. You might think that you should be free to migrate wherever you want. But the reality is you have to be responsible for your own life. And if you want to migrate from one place to another, there has to be a place for you, and you have to bring value to the place that you go to. Okay? If you're not willing to work, if you're not willing to be a productive member of society or embrace the cultural values of the country that you're trying to move to, you don't have the right to migrate there. You don't have the right to displace the people that are there, the beliefs, the laws, just because you think you have a right to. In this specific instance, I would say things like, here in the United States, we don't believe in child brides. We don't believe in rule by a mob. We have laws, we have legislative process, we have branches of government that are supposed to balance each other out. Now, one could argue they're not doing that so well right now, but you can't come to this country and tell me that you're going to live by your law and you're going to ignore my law. You're going to ignore our country's law. You can't do that. You don't have a right to do that. But in today's world, they're trying to say that. The UN is trying to say that you have a right to migrate wherever you want to. Okay? That's crap. You don't have a right to that. If you want to do that, you have to take ownership and be worth and abide by the laws of the land. You have to provide a way for yourself and bring value to that society that you're trying to move yourself into. And lastly, this universal basic income. Nothing in this world is free. No living creature comes into the world and doesn't immediately have to fight for its survival. The only reason humans are different is because we take care of our young that are incapable of providing for themselves. We, the parents, take responsibility for those children and allow them to live. We pay with our sweat and our tears and our sleepless nights and our hard work for their lives to exist. And hopefully by the time we get to, 18 or nowadays, 26, 28, hopefully by the time we get the kids from birth to 18, 20, whatever, they're able to take off and provide for themselves, take responsibility for their own lives, start behaving as responsible citizens and people accountable to themselves and responsible for their choices and their actions. This idea that a universal basic income, that everybody's just going to get money out of the sky, where does that money come from? You have to take it from somewhere. It has to be produced. It has to be made. Wealth has to be made. It's not something that just spontaneously appears, and it's not something that you can, or shouldn't be something that you can steal through consensus or otherwise from someone else. Like I said before, consensus is just distributed guilt. Typically, murder or theft, distributed guilt. Okay, just because people voted that, hey, we have a right to take your product, or hey, we have a right to take your money or your land or your resources or whatever, doesn't mean they have a right to. It's just murder or theft with distributed guilt. A universal basic income, that idea implies that every person brings a certain amount of value to the table. And while made in the image of God, they are valuable, they may not necessarily bring value to the table. This is why for years people have been saying a liberal arts education, a degree in, something other than the STEM stuff, law, medical, engineering, etc., a degree in some field like, underwater basket weaving used to be the joke when I was in college. I'm going to go get a degree in underwater basket weaving because it's easier. Communications was another one. Communications is one that people seem to go get, but how are you going to get a job? What value are you going to bring to a company with a communications degree? Everybody should know how to read, how to write, how to speak. They may not, especially in today's world, but you should know how. Those are some basic skills that if your parents raised you right, you would know. A universal basic income is doomed to fail because it tells an infant child with absolutely no utility in the system that they're worth X amount of money, or that to their parents they're worth X amount of money. It leads to the same problems that we have currently with the welfare system, where low-income families and people that are on welfare will have more and more kids because it means they get more and more dollars. They're not more productive. and their kids being born doesn't make the system stronger as a whole, but they get more money for it. A universal basic income is going to allow people to sit around and do nothing, to stare at their phones and scroll. And honestly, that's probably their goal. They want them to mindlessly consume information, and they're going to take their data, they're going to aggregate their personal information, their lifestyle choices. They're going to use them as data points in a giant, consumption scam. Currently, that's what they're doing. There's nothing free. Facebook isn't free. They use all of your data. They use it for marketing. They use it for all kinds of different studies and research. They're building AI programs to model you as an individual so they know how to sell to you. They know how to get you interested. They know how to keep you interested. They know how to manipulate your thoughts. Shoot, there's been studies that have shown that some of these things have the ability to shift something as much as 10% in an election. That's huge. It's not free. It's massive amounts of data that they're using to manipulate you with. There's no free lunch. We don't get to decide how we live, when we live, what's going to kill us, what sicknesses or diseases we might get. We can't control what country we're born into. We can try to earn the right to move, but we don't get the right to move. It's not entitled to us that we have the right to move wherever we want, that we can do whatever we want. That's completely dependent on us taking personal responsibility for our lives. If our government ends up instituting these things, universal health care, universal basic income, we are currently not defending our border and allowing, I think it's 1.6 million people have come across the border this year, undocumented, illegal immigrants, whatever you want to call it. These things will lead to essentially society, humanity in our country and the rest of the world, because they're all kind of doing the same thing. They will become leeches feeding on the productive individuals, the thinking individuals, the hardworking individuals that have ability, that have skill, that have resources. It will end up with people like Bezos and Elon Musk and whoever else you can think of that is uber productive, all the way down to the single family farm that produces and feeds more than just themselves. They will end up being utterly destroyed, bled dry, unable to provide for themselves, because every time they produce something, it will get taken away. And the more they're able to produce, the more will get taken from them. There's no free lunch. Nothing is free. You have to choose to earn it. You cannot exist without making a choice, and that choice is whether or not you're going to live off of somebody else or whether you're going to provide for yourself. God gave us freedom and free will. He gave us the option to choose His way, the way of life, productive life, a good life, or a life that is lazy, unproductive, consuming rather than producing. So, what do you do with the knowledge that there's no free lunch? What do you decide to do with that knowledge? First, acknowledge that you're responsible for your life and make a choice to go out and produce, to take responsibility for your life. Stop living off of your parents, your spouse, whoever, unemployment, disability, welfare, whatever it is. Go out and start being productive. Better yourselves, do good work, produce enough to feed and provide for yourself, and then expand that. Better your life. Work harder, get more skill, become better. That's the first thing. Acknowledge that you are responsible for your life and make a choice to own it and do something with that. Second thing is, if you're living off someone else, stop altogether. Become productive. Cannot claim to be a man if you're living off of somebody else. There's always a way. You have skills and resources. There are a million ways to make $1 million in the United States. There is a way. I don't care what your disability is. I don't care what your situation is. I don't care what. If somebody has ever had your condition and they figured out a way to provide for themselves, you can do it. Period. That's all there is to it. You can do it. Third thing, master your responsibilities, providing for yourself, paying all your bills, making sure you're not living off of somebody else, then you're free to expand your scope. Maybe you can then provide for your spouse, get a spouse, or have kids and you're able to provide for them. You have to expand your capacity, your responsibility, increase your circle to greater and greater capacity. You'll eventually find your limit, but you can grow substantially beyond being somebody that lives off other people. Once you've mastered all of your responsibilities, once you've grown a family, once you've helped other people around you and had the resources to do so, then the fourth thing is you have to start teaching other people that are stuck in the place of being consumers instead of producers, or leeches instead of life givers. Start teaching other people what you did. Teach them either skills or knowledge, help them to make the choice to take responsibility for their lives and to do it well. Once you've mastered your own responsibilities, you'll find yourself with the capacity, the free time, the resources to help teach and encourage other people to go do likewise. There's no free lunch. You are ultimately responsible for your life, and you have to own it. That's all I've got for you today. I appreciate you listening. If this resonates true to you, if you feel like you are a producer who's being fed off of, or if you feel like you're not a producer but you want to be, please leave a comment below. Like, subscribe to the channel. That would really help us out. I desire that this channel will be a place where men can connect with each other, grow and develop as responsible individuals and producers, not consumers. That we will be useful men. I think in the times that are coming, that's going to be really, really important. The ability to be a producer and a life giver versus a consumer is going to be hugely important in the next, honestly, the next year, the next 5 years, the next 10 years. The trajectory of your life and the life of this country will change dramatically if more of us step up and become responsible, productive individuals. Anyway, thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.